Am I the a-hole for telling my kids I am not okay with calling their stepmom mom? 2 years ago, my husband left me for my best friend after 20 years of marriage, and they got married. As much as I loved my husband, his affair wasn't a surprise. My mother-in-law told me in our wedding day that men like him don't stay loyal to women like me. She was right. What hurt the most was the betrayal from my best friend. I loved this woman and considered her a sister. Since then, I have gone no contact from both of them. Any communication regarding the kids goes through a third party. If they are at an event, I don't go there. My kids know this and have respected this boundary. They know not to mention them to me, and we celebrate birthdays separately. The kids are now 16 female, 17 male, 17 female, 18 female, and 21 male. Recently, when we were all at our house, 16 female asked me if I was okay with her calling her stepmom mom. She said since she will have a half-sibling soon, this will make the half-sibling not confused and part of the family. I told her that no, I am not okay with that woman being called mom, but she could call her that if she wanted to. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean she doesn't have to do it. I won't be mad at her if she calls her mom. The other kids started getting mad at her, but I shut them down. My mother-in-law called me screaming, saying I'm alienating the stepmom, and I should have told 16 female that I'm okay with it. I have an honest policy with my kids. I'm always open and honest with them. Just because I do not personally like something they do, doesn't mean I don't let them do it. For example, 17 male has a lot of piercings I personally do not like, but that doesn't mean I forbid him from having them. Now for the top comments before the little update. Not today, hole. At 16, the kid should be able to understand why you would not be okay with that. Besides, I don't see how the half-sibling would be confused if everything is explained to them like any other blended family. Sounds like someone whispered in your kid's ear about calling the mistress mom thing, because I don't think a 16-year-old would think about it on their own. I would like to say that my former best friend is better than that, but then again, she also slept with my husband after 15 years of friendship, so maybe I don't know her that well. It may not be the mistress. It could be your ex or your ex's mother, since she seems so angry about it. Your ex's mother. Possible. She loves her new daughter-in-law. No one was happier in the divorce than her, because she now finally has a daughter-in-law for her class, rather than one below it. You handled that very maturely and reasonably. Your ex-mother-in-law is just an a-hole, and don't listen to her. I think that you're being graceful in the face of great pain and sacrifice. You sound like an excellent mother. I'm sorry you're going through this. I'd suggest adding your mother-in-law to your no-contact list as well, since it looks like she's not a rational person. Can I call her mom and are you okay with me calling her mom are two very different questions. The first one, the answer can be controversial. If you had said no, then she could have argued with you. You said yes. No arguing there. The second one, she is asking you about a feeling. You can't control a feeling. She can't be mad because you feel things. What makes a difference between a good and a bad person is not the feeling they have, but what they do with the feeling. You are not a bad person for having a feeling, and you were definitely a good person for having a bad feeling, but choosing to handle it the hard way. Not today, hole. Now for the little update. I just went up to my daughter's room. I gently asked her why she gave mother-in-law my number. She said because grandma asked her. I asked if it was her idea to call stepmom mom. She said yes. I told her she is more than allowed to call her mom. It doesn't matter how I feel about it. I also told her that I want no contact with her grandmother for a reason, and she isn't allowed to give my number out to people I don't talk to. She apologized. Also to the people asking about the stepmom. She was my best friend for 15 years and the kids considered her an aunt. When the affair happened, the oldest kid stopped talking to her, but the youngest was very attached to her still. Maybe that's why she feels comfortable with calling her mom. Either way, it's her choice. I would also like to address a few things. To those of you accusing me of blaming the stepmom and not my husband for the affair, I blame both. I got betrayed by two people. One a husband and the other a sister. A betrayal from a sister hits just as hard as a betrayal from a husband. And secondly, some of you have been commenting on why my daughter is so attached to the stepmom. My youngest is a very loving person. Her stepmom has been in her life since she was 1 year old. Back then she was auntie, but after the affair, all my other children turned away from her. But it wasn't so easy for my youngest. She still cares for her. My boundary is still in place. I'm no contact with the ex-mother-in-law and ex-best friend. I will be logging off now. Have a great day. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not contributing to my family's expenses related to my wedding? My fiancé, 26 female, and I, 28 male, are getting married at a destination wedding next summer. The destination is special to my fiancé as she vacationed there with her family a couple times when she was younger, and it holds sentimental value to her. I was open to the idea since I am pretty indifferent when it comes to the wedding planning, and this seemed like an easy way to check a lot of boxes at once, plus the added bonus of my fiancé getting a wedding she dreamed about. Of course, the downfall of a destination wedding is that people might not be able to attend. We expected this and had a lot of conversations about making sure we don't take anything personally if people can't attend, and we're very clear to the people we asked to be in our wedding party about the cost and expectations. There were a couple of friends they asked to be groomsmen that had to decline due to them having young kids, and I totally get that and respect it. I'm not an idiot. My wedding is not more important than your kids to you. This hasn't been as much of a problem with my fiancé's side, as her family comes from money, and destination weddings are kind of the norm for them. In the time we've dated, I think 4 to 5 of her cousins have had destination weddings, but we only attended one of them, and there was no fuss on anyone's part about the ones we didn't go to. My family, however, does not come from money. When I told my parents and siblings about our wedding plans, they all kind of freaked out about not being able to afford it. I get it, my siblings have kids and expenses too. So I told them I understand if it's not something they are able to afford, and while I would love for them to be there, I won't hold it against them if they can't make it work. My parents have guilted me over it a little bit, but have assured me they will be attending. However, they told me that we should all pool some money together, and by all they mean mostly me, to make sure all my siblings and their families can attend. I told them there is pretty much no way I can do that. My 2 sisters got wind of this idea, probably from my mom, and they said that the only way they can attend is if I help pay for at least half of their trips for their whole families, kids included. I kind of laughed at that and told them there is no way I will do that. They said that since I am the one who decided to have a destination wedding, and that it is my responsibility to make sure my family can all attend. I told them that I love them and would love to have them at my wedding, but I am not funding vacations for their entire family. I said the only way I would even consider it would be if it was just them and their spouses, no kids. They said that excluding their kids was not acceptable. They told me that I have turned into a stuck-up a-hole since I got engaged, and I am rubbing my fiancé's money in their faces. They accused me of having a destination wedding on purpose to rub it in their faces that they can't afford something like it. The thing is, you're throwing a wedding that you know your family can't attend financially, but your wife's can. You therefore know that this will be a wedding for your wife's family, not yours. You therefore know that this is symbolic of you choosing and entering a lifestyle in which money divides you from your former family. If your family's presence in your life isn't important for your wedding, there's every reason to believe it won't be important for other events. Your family understands all this, just like you do. You're pretending it's just one day and it's no big deal if they miss it. Like, you won't be offended. Like, your feelings won't be hurt. But that's your way of deflecting the point. It hurts them to watch you choose money over their participation in your life. It hurts them to be excluded from the wedding of their close loved one. You're the a-hole. Take responsibility for leaving your family out of your wedding. It hurts them to watch you choose money over their participation in your life. It hurts them to be excluded from the wedding of their close loved one. Meh, they don't really show much interest in my life anyway. Heck, when my sisters FaceTime me to complain, it was the first time either of them had taken the time to call me in almost 18 months. I am 10 years younger than my older sister and 8 years younger than the other. I have been an afterthought in their lives ever since they started having kids. I don't hold it against them. I get it. Their families are the most important things in their lives. I make sure to send cards for each of their kids on every birthday, gifts for every kid at Christmas. I don't even get a text from them on my birthday. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm kidding myself into thinking I actually want them there. And this is just my subconscious reminding me that they don't give a f about me unless they think they can get something out of it. But for them to act like they actually care about my important life events kind of makes me laugh now that I think about it. Based on this, not a hole. You're not close and that sucks. But you are doing your due diligence in the relationship and they aren't. The age gap can make sibling relationships more complicated. Everyone sucks here. Yeah, sure, it's your wedding. No, you don't need to pay for anyone to attend. But saying you'd love for them to come is deeply disingenuous when you've set this up, or allowed it to be set up, rather, in a way you know only works for your fiancé and her family. And while I'm not recommending you throw her under the bus, I think you need to stop treating your family like idiots. and just acknowledge you don't actually care whether they're there or not. It's Opie's wedding and they can have it where they damn well please. It's not treating people like idiots or disingenuous to say we would love for you to come but we understand why you might not be able to. Other people's finances aren't their problem and shouldn't dictate their choices. Next story. Am I the a-hole? I went with my friend to a restaurant that was originally reserved for me and my wife. Yesterday was my birthday. My 30 male wife, 28 female and I had made reservations at this really nice Korean barbecue restaurant for dinner. My wife is also 4 months pregnant. However, her friend wanted to hang out with her and had called her the night before my birthday. My wife said that this was a childhood friend of hers and that she really wanted to spend time with her. I reminded her that it's my birthday, but she just dismissed it, saying my birthday comes every year, but her friend will be leaving for Germany in a few weeks. I told her that she could go after my birthday as well, but she did not listen and just went to a sleepover at her friend's place. I got really mad at her. But instead of waiting for her to return home to talk things out, I asked my friend if he would like to hang out with me. He was fine with it, so we spent the day fishing, grilling, hiking, and went to the Korean barbecue for dinner. When she came home after spending time with her friend, she apologized to me, saying it was an unavoidable circumstance. I told her that it wasn't a problem, and that I spent the day with my best friend. She got mad that I would take him to the restaurant that we had booked for ourselves. I said that it was originally for us, but since she prioritized her friend over me, I took the person who prioritized me on my birthday. She said that I'm controlling and that I shouldn't be deciding who she spends time with. Now she's neither talking to me nor coming out of the room. I think I went too far by telling her whom she should be spending time with. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. But you didn't tell her she shouldn't spend time with her friend? You only asked that she not do it on that specific day. What is she talking about? Your wife is playing the victim here. She seems really immature and rude. Not the a-hole. I know. It's funny because she also stated that her friend is leaving in a few weeks, but his birthday is one day. Normal Darvo crap. Damn. Came back to check on this because of the notification. Didn't really know what Darvo was. Googled it and damn. That is freaking Darvo crap. Legit, she is playing victim now to make Opie feel guilty. And it worked. Opie had to write this because he most likely thought he was the a-hole. Seems to me she's actually the one being controlling. She doesn't prioritize you on your birthday, but then wants to say you shouldn't continue with your plans with your friend in her place. She would have preferred you sitting at home waiting for her on your birthday. That's really not very nice. Edited to add, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this was a milestone birthday? That's not right. Yep, it was my 30th birthday. That's why the fancy restaurant, or we usually stuff ourselves at AC's. Oh wow. Yeah, I think that was a really selfish decision on her part, and you were remarkably cool about it, considering it must have hurt some. So not fair to get mad at you for celebrating with someone who chose to be there for you. I'm confused. What did she expect you to do? Sit at home and cry? Your wife is the a-hole. She didn't need to visit her friend that day. She didn't need to stay out all night and come in the next morning. That's weird. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to return the $600 gift I bought for Mom for Christmas? To start, I want to mention that unlike my wife, I have a very good relationship with Mom. And because my siblings can always afford pricey gifts for Mom this year, I decided to gift her something nice and expensive for once on Christmas. Though I'm currently unemployed, but I work for the past few months, and my wife and I have a joint account. The problem began when my wife found out I purchased a $600 necklace for my mom to gift her on Christmas using our joint account. She went off on me, saying I should have told her and shouldn't have taken money from our joint account that she uses to pay the bills and rent, especially now that we're struggling. I asked why should I tell her since it's for us both, but she reminded me that despite that being true, 1, I no longer work, and 2, $600 is a lot and I should have consulted her. But the reasons I didn't are 1, I feel that it's my money too and I can make purchases using our joint account. And 2, I know if I told my wife she'd refuse to let me buy the gift solely because she hates my mom. She yelled at me saying that it's her hard-earned money I threw away and needed to return the necklace. But I refused because Mom already knows about it. She responded that this is no longer our joint account since I no longer earn money, and that if I want to gift Mom expensive items then I needed to earn money. She insisted I return it, but I said no, and it escalated to me calling her bitter and controlling, after she pointed out I never got her anything in this price range. She's insisting I return it and at least get a cheaper one, but I'm done being the one with the least expensive / valuable gifts to gift in the family. She's making this her hill to die on. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. Money shared is exactly that. Shared. You're in a partnership. You can't just spend the shared money willy-nilly. And she has every right to be upset if you're using the money you both share to buy extravagant gifts for other people without talking it through first. My rule of thumb is always, if it's more than $100, discuss it. Shared finances is not an ask for forgiveness, not permission situation. This exactly. I never spent more than $100 without consulting my wife. Because of tight bills, I lowered my threshold to $20 unless it is no necessity. Food, gas, oil change. You're unemployed and blew what I take home in a week? Oh yeah, you're the a-hole. Oh, told mom before Christmas so you couldn't return it. Double a-hole. Doing it intentionally behind your wife's back because you didn't even need to talk to her to know it was wrong? You planning on moving in with your mother? Probably should. You need a new place to sleep. This was a triple a-hole move. You said what I was thinking in perfect summary. You should start packing now. It is absolutely unreasonable for someone in your financial situation, having no income, to be making unnecessary $600 purchases from your joint account without agreement from your wife. No parent wants their unemployed adult son buying them a $600 necklace for Christmas. He says she already knows about the necklace though, which may shed some light on why she and the wife don't get along. What sort of person finds out their unemployed son just spent $600 on jewelry? It is like, great, thanks, looking forward to it. Sounds like he and his mother deserve each other. Am I the a-hole for calling my mom when my husband refused to listen to me? I, 26 female, recently moved into my first home. I am also 4 months pregnant with our first baby. The pregnancy has been very hard. I have horrible morning sickness that reached a really bad point where I passed out and hit my head, and my doctor admitted me to the hospital for a week. When I got home, my husband allowed his brother's family to move into 2 of our 3 bedrooms. They were evicted, and I don't know why. One room was my office was tossed into our room, papers everywhere. The house was a complete wreck. Trash, dirty clothes, used diapers. I started to cry. It was like a light flipped, and my husband was no longer the same. My husband told me it wasn't that bad. My reply was, fine then. You should have the house cleaned up before I wake up. Completely exhausted, I fell asleep for 4 hours. I woke up and went to get a drink of water, and I couldn't as every glass we owned is scattered around the house. They didn't clean a single thing. I passive-aggressively started to pick up the dirty dishes and wash them. The following morning, I was trying my best to work when their kids were crying nonstop, banging on the walls, so on. Their mom was in her room for hours ignoring them. When my husband came home, he was upset with me over how I didn't make his brother's wife feel welcome in our home by helping with her kids when she was tired, then continued to complain how nothing was done in the house while he was at work all day. Yep, the same house he didn't clean. That led to a fight where I told him, I am sick to have company and they need to leave. To which he replied, they're his family, and he won't kick them out. I started to cry again. I was beyond frustrated, exhausted. I physically couldn't do it anymore. So I called my mom asking if I could come stay with her, telling her the whole story in front of my husband, who at this point was completely shocked, angry. Also, I could tell he wasn't sure what to do. My mom came with my brothers. I have 3 older brothers. My super angry mom told my husband, since your family can stay, so can we. My mom then quickly took charge. I was sent to bed while my brother started cleaning, complaining loudly at how disgusting my brother-in-law's family is, along with what a horrible husband my husband is for putting me through this while I am sick. Later, I got a text message from my mother-in-law calling me an a-hole for not helping my husband clean up the house and putting my brother-in-law in an uncomfortable position by having my mom boss him around. Now for the top comments. Wait, your mother-in-law called to fuss at you for involving your mother? There's this pot kettle thing. Not the a-hole 1000%, but house guests in a shared home require 2 yeses and only 1 no. Both of you agree or it shouldn't happen. Your husband has treated you abominably. I'm not sure I could deal with that honestly. Can you go stay with your mom? I agree with the 2 yeses, but I wasn't even asked to say no. Which is a huge sign of disrespect and a major red flag. Does he do this a lot? Does he actively treat you like a partner? Or does he just decide things and you go along to keep the peace? This will not get better, OP, if you don't set some major boundaries. Again, that he did this while you were in the hospital suggests he knew you didn't agree and wanted to present it as a done deal you couldn't/wouldn't argue with. Go stay with mom and let him enjoy lying in the filthy bed is made. And honestly tell him that you're not coming back until they're gone and your house is as clean as when you left it. If you won't or can't, then you know where his priorities are. You're pregnant. The house you describe is unfit to bring a newborn into. Depending on how bad and what country you live in, Child Protective Services could step in. Is your marriage worth potentially losing custody of your baby over? Because I can tell you right now that it shouldn't be. That baby has to be your #1 priority, and living in a house full of dirty dishes and moldy food ain't it, sis. My heart hurts for you. You deserve so much better. He has always been very respectful. It was like his switch went off, and he's no longer acting like the loving person I know when he's around his brother. I know this may be hard to hear, but I don't think this is about his brother. You're now pregnant with his child and tied to him forever. This is when a lot of abusers show their true colors. It's time for you to start thinking about exit strategies. Not the a-hole. In fact, I think you were underreacting, which is understandable considering your current health. Next story. Am I the a-hole for making my sister listen to her daughter scream? My 33 female sister Marnie, 35 female, has a 3-year-old daughter Annabelle. I love my niece very, very much, but Marnie sets down no boundaries for her. Everything Annabelle does is age appropriate, but as a parent, it's your job to help your child become the best person they can be. When Annabelle doesn't want to do something or needs to get her way, she screams. It's very, very loud and hard to ignore, so Marnie and her husband would instantly give in. As a mom of 4, I completely understand it's hard to hear your child cry or be upset. And sometimes, yes, absolutely pick your battles, but others, the toddler can't win. Around the holidays, Marnie and I hung out a lot with the kids. At one point, we were headed to an aquarium. Marnie started going one way and Annabelle started screaming. Marnie turns around and heads in a direction that'll add 15 minutes to our route. When I asked why, she said that Annabelle likes passing a certain landmark on her way. However, Annabelle then started screaming she didn't want to see it, and halfway there we turned around. It added more time and my kids were annoyed. I let most of this go as Annabelle is not my child. It isn't my vehicle nor house where these predicaments take place. But then Marnie broke her leg while her husband was out of town and she needed help getting around and tending to Annabelle, so I agreed they should stay with us. Last night, we pick up our kids from school, stopping at Annabelle's preschool last. Once we finally get her in the car, as she didn't want to leave and Marnie let her just run around for 10 minutes and wouldn't let me grab her because she's the boss of her body. I'm exhausted. I still have to get home and cook. As I'm heading in one direction, Annabelle starts screaming for me to go in the other. I calmly explain that way is longer and we don't have the time. Marnie asks me to just make it easier as she doesn't want to hear her scream. But going that way will add more time to our drive, so I say no again and kept driving, putting on some kid-friendly music while my kids are trying to distract Annabelle. Marnie starts crying, saying things like, "It's okay, baby. We'll be home soon. Oh, I know you're so sad." This isn't very nice. The thing is, Annabelle stopped screaming after 5 minutes when she realized she wasn't getting her way. Keep in mind, she never shed a tear, just screamed. Marnie later told me that I was horrible for forcing her to listen to her daughter scream. Asking wouldn't have been so hard to not add stress to her. My husband agrees that I did the right thing, but also pointed out Marnie and Annabelle are going through a stressful time. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. That poor kid apparently won't be learning appropriate behavior anytime soon. Yep, especially since anyone who teaches it to her will apparently be berated for making her scream. Annabelle needs to be taught good behavior immediately, and Marnie's doing a massive disservice to her child by refusing to parent her. As the saying goes, they can cry now or you can cry later. This won't get better as she gets older if Marnie keeps things this way, only worse. Not the a-hole. It's your car, and you're not being paid to chauffeur her daughter around. When she drives, she picks the path home, and you kept mom. They can afford you the same respect. But you can't change how your sister parents her child. You can only distance yourself from the spoiled brat she's raising. I don't think it's that simple. I don't think people have some complete, inalienable right to parent their kids as incompetently as they like in their own nuclear family silo. Sooner or later, we're all accountable to a community. I'm also not one of those people on this website who seemingly gets off at the thought of berating a bratty child stranger in public. That's not what I mean. But the adults closest to this kid's misguided parents have a role in enforcing their own expectations, making it clear that this kid will have to learn to cope if she wants to function in settings outside her own home. Better that than this kid's underpaid stressed teachers trying to do it alone, with no support from any other adults, while Opie and other family keep a cold distance. Not the a-hole. Hopefully Marnie and her husband will learn to set healthy boundaries with Annabelle. Does Annabelle behave like this at preschool? Yep, there's been a lot of behavioral reports because she screams when told no, or clean up messes. Next story. Am I the a-hole for bringing my baby to the hotel resort my brother was getting married in? My brother was getting married, and it was a child-free wedding per future sister-in-law's request. The wedding was out of state, so my husband and I were going to make it into a 3-day weekend. We had a sitter lined up months ago, but the day before we were set to leave, she had to cancel for a family emergency. We tried to find a last-minute sitter that we trusted, and could also do just overnight but came up empty. I tried calling and texting my brother about the situation but couldn't get hold of him. We were both in the wedding party and I didn't want to leave my brother and his soon-to-be wife in bind, so I called my mother after that since I knew she was with them. I explained the situation and she said she'd call me back after talking to him. 4 hours passed and we didn't hear back from them, so we had to make a decision. And since we are currently sharing one vehicle, I couldn't really leave my husband and kid without a vehicle, and he had put a lot of money already into the wedding and trip, so we just took our baby with us. We got there later than we originally planned and just went to our room. The next afternoon was the wedding, and my husband and I planned to swap time out. I'd go to ceremony and part of the reception while he stayed with the baby, and he could attend the second half of the reception while I stayed with the baby. When the ceremony was over, and we were heading inside to the reception, my husband had the baby inside in her stroller. I joined my husband and went to say hello to some family members, and went with him to congratulate my brother and new sister-in-law. Husband said his hellos and congrats, then went back to our room with our child. I left the reception area a few times to bring my husband some small plates of food, so he didn't have to wait for his turn to eat. In one of my trips back, my brother spoke with me about it being child-free wedding, and his wife was upset that my husband had a baby in the lobby, and that I kept leaving the reception. I told him they can't be too upset because we didn't bring the baby into the wedding area or the reception. But the rest of the time I was at the reception, I kept getting comments from who I'm guessing were sister-in-law's family and her bridesmaids about how I was trying to steal her thunder by having my baby there. Sister-in-law kept asking why I didn't just leave them at home and would not accept my reason for not doing so. It's been a sore spot for my family and her all weekend. Am I an a-hole for bringing the baby with us? Info. The wedding ceremony itself was outside in a courtyard. It was not in a closed-off area. We had to go through the lobby area to get to the reception hall. My husband was in the lobby walking with the baby and getting coffee from the hotel shop. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Short of abandoning your child, what else were you supposed to do? Would have loved to hear sister-in-law's recommendation, likely requiring duct tape. Not the a-hole. Wait, you don't use duct tape on your kids? Not the a-hole. Excited to hear what magical solutions everyone had on offer. You were in the wedding party. You had a solid plan for everything. You showed up and did an amazing job under those circumstances. The magical solutions were 1. Leave my husband without a car while he was home with our baby. 2. Leave our child with a babysitter we didn't know for more than one night. 3. My husband languished in the hotel room for hours without eating before he could go downstairs to the reception, which held to the no on room service prices. And 4. Whoever was watching the baby just stay in the room. You forgot the solution where someone actually got back to you in a timely manner about you losing your sitter. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You and your husband did all you could to respect the child-free wedding, while also dealing with an unexpected sitter cancellation. You tried to reach out to someone in advance of the wedding, and did everything you could to not have the baby be the center of attention. The only piece that maybe stands out is the left the reception area a few times. But without knowing what kind of setup that was or how you left, it doesn't change my opinion. Last story. Am I the a-hole for hiding condiments for my wife and children? My wife more or less takes care of the house and kids. When I'm home, I take care of the honey-do list and do my part around the house. Before I got married, I lived with my roommates and never had any problems. We were all immature adults who respected each other's boundaries, and when we didn't, we accepted repercussions. Now, our house has a large kitchen with lots of cupboards. Our pantry is under the basement stairs. My wife leaves just the basics in the kitchen cupboards. She says that everything we aren't going to use up that week can stay downstairs. I am the only person in my family that eats certain snacks, as neither my wife or kids like my stuff. So I ask for one shelf in the kitchen for my stuff, not one cupboard. 1 out of 3 shelves and 1 out of 11 cupboards. My wife agreed that was fair, and it has been that way since we bought the house. I get to keep soap, candy, and salty licorice where I can always find them, along with my personal balsamic vinegar and few other things. My cupboard isn't stuffed, but it's not particularly organized either. But I know it's there, so I can reach in and grab what I want. For the last few months, my family has decided that since my shelf isn't full, they can stuff whatever they want in there. For the most part, it consists a bunch of giant condiment packs from Costco, stuff that belongs in the pantry. I've asked them not to do this, and I take the stuff down to the pantry. I am getting kind of sick of this. I started just pulling them out and leaving them on the counter, and they ended up back on my shelf. So now I hide them around the house. When they come looking for the salt, pepper, granulated garlic, garlic toast mix, or steak spice, I give them clues. Boy, I sure would be salty if I found that in the basement bathroom under the sink. Then they have to go dig it out from behind everything there. My wife says that she understands and that I can stop doing this. I agree, so I promised I would only do this stuff that wasn't mine that was on my single shelf. She said I was being an a-hole. I agree, but I don't think I'm alone in this. On the plus side, I don't have to hide half a gallon of vinegar in the garage now. Seems like I'm in the minority so far, but I think not the a-hole. Without much cupboard space and separate pantry, it would be very easy for them to just leave you your one shelf regardless of whether or not it is empty. It's not empty. It has my stuff on it. I don't know, man. Reading the absolute vitriol in the replies has me cracking up. I don't think it's that serious. She gave you spot for your stuff and is no longer respecting that space. Are you being a bit of a dum-dum with hiding stuff? Sure, but it's harmless. Going against the grain on this one to say not the a-hole. Or just move your food forward on the shelf so it looks full. But yeah, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Man wants one shelf to himself. He's fulfilled the usual AITA demand to communicate and it failed. Instead of the YTAers getting pissy with him, how about his family grant him one simple request? Agreed. OP is so petty. Darn right. Am I the a-hole for telling my in-laws exactly where my husband was when I was in labor? I gave birth to my son 10 weeks ago. I went through an exhausting period while I was nearing my due date. I was experiencing discomfort and wanted my husband by my side when I go into labor. But he'd go out every night to hang out at his friend's place and watch football games. I suggested that he play/watch games at home just in case, but he was having none of it and said he had to attend game night at his brother and friend's place, along with his buddies. He said they had certain, how can I describe it, rituals when watching a game, but he can't enjoy doing it at home or anywhere else. The night of our son's birth, my water broke while my husband was at his buddy's place watching a game. I called him and told him to get home and take me to the hospital. It said he was coming, but he didn't. I ended up calling my sister and she took me to the hospital. My husband showed up 2 hours later after I kept calling asking if I was still in labor and that he was almost done watching the game. He was able to make it on time for our son's birth, but I was furious with him, mad and disappointed. He apologized profoundly and has been working on regaining my trust and respect for him after what is done. He is otherwise very supportive and involved in our son's care. Last night, I was at my in-laws' house for dinner, and we were talking about my son's birth date. My husband suddenly started recalling what happened that night, and basically started lying about driving me to the hospital, waiting and feeling stressed out, and standing on his feet for so long without food or even water. I was confused. I said, no, none of this was true. None of this happened. In fact, he was watching a game when I went into labor, and I wanted him to drive me to the hospital, but he didn't show up till 2 hours later. My mother-in-law, who takes no nonsense from anybody in whom everyone fears, lost it on him, yelling, asking him if that was true, and he kept quiet. He started berating him left and right, telling him to sit down and shut up when he stood up to argue, then told him to stand up when he was sitting arguing. Everyone was laughing at how she basically treated him as if he was a boy in trouble. She kept saying, "Shame, shame, shame on you. This is not how I raised my children to treat their wives. Jordan, you are a disgrace, and I'm disappointed because of what I heard from you." He literally swallowed every bit of his mother's berating and didn't say anything till we got home, where he went nuts saying made him look neglectful. A bad husband and father by telling the family about where he was, and said I shouldn't have said anything. But I argued it wasn't okay for him to lie and play hero in front of his parents. He said I just caused a rift between him and family and asked if I was happy now. Am I the a-hole? Should I have not said anything? Added to say that he has done similar things in the past, since he's a major enthusiast of football and hockey, but I didn't expect it to get to that. Also, this is not our first baby together. We have a 4-year-old son. Now for the top comments. Not an a-hole. You didn't make him look like anything. He did. Truth hurts. Maybe next time he will do what he should and not act like a child. Not an a-hole. You said that he's working on regaining your trust, but by lying about his refusal to be there for you, he took a major step back in his attempt to be more trustworthy. Your mother-in-law is awesome though. Your husband got exactly what he deserved. I love the mother-in-law here. Wow. Just wow. Not an a-hole. Husband is absolutely 100% an a-hole for 1, not driving his wife to the hospital when she went into labor. 2, waiting until the game was over to get to the hospital. And 3, lying about it to his family. This would honestly make me question divorce. This is bad. At the very least, marriage counseling would be a must. His argument was that my sister's house was 15 minutes away and thought she'd take me, then he'll follow. Not an a-hole, and I'm sorry, but it sounds like you have deeper issues than him just going to his friend's house to watch football. He doesn't have respect for you, and unfortunately it shows clearly. After his mom put him in his place, which I fully support and think was on the right, he went back home to scream at you and berate you for telling her the truth? At this point, his relationship with his mom shouldn't be your concern. It should be his lack of interest in you and your child, which was clearly shown by him not even showing up to take you to the hospital. I don't believe that saying to you to leave him will do anything, but you do need therapy ASAP, and if he doesn't want any, that's your full answer. You're a mother now and need to put your and your child's well-being before your husband's. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for punishing my husband for throwing away my dinner? To preface, my husband 33 and I 29 have been together for 4 years. He's vegan and I'm not. He cooks for himself and I cook for myself since he doesn't eat meat products. Last night, I prepared dinner and sat on the couch to eat and watch TV. I heard my phone ring upstairs and went to answer it as it was an important call. I got caught up in the conversation and didn't realize I spent 6 minutes on the phone. I went downstairs after the call ended and saw my husband sitting on a couch. I looked past him and saw my dinner plate was gone. I looked around asking if he touched it. I decided he dumped the food in the trash can because it looked like it was left on the coffee table for a long time, and there was bad smell coming out of it, almost like the meat was rotting inside, and said that while making a disgusted face. I was floored. I yelled at him, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I just prepared dinner for myself and was about to eat but had to take a 6-minute phone call and come back. He said he didn't know food was fresh since he was in his office working, but still insists there was weird smell coming from the plate. I said it was none of his concern, and he should have left it alone. But he defended himself, saying it wasn't his fault his eyes got tired of working and wanted to watch TV. But I decided to leave meat laying around for him to feel disgusted, knowing how he reacts to being exposed to meat products. He started making gagging sounds, then went on about the living room being mutual space and that I disrespected him by leaving meat around. I mentioned that he always eats his food in the living room, sometimes the bedroom even. He said, "So you're saying you're disgusted with my cooking?" I asked if he was disgusted with mine, but he explained that his problem was me leaving meat on display with total lack of consideration for his health. We got in a big argument that I went upstairs and refused to do the dishes, after he reminded me since that's my part of chores. True. He ended up doing them himself and started complaining I was punishing him for what happened by making him do the dishes with his injured, he had an accident, hand. I said since his injured hand threw my dinner away, then it can do the dishes just fine. But he said I'm violating the deal and not sticking to my part of chores. Am I the a-hole? I'm thinking maybe he was right and that the living room is shared space and I shouldn't have left meat there. Not the a-hole. Your husband sure is. I understand that he's not thrilled with you eating meat. However, he behaved in a childish and petty manner. What he did was both wasteful and disrespectful. There is no way he would have allowed meat to sit around for days, thus allowing it to rot and smell bad. He knew you were a meat eater prior to marriage. If he had a problem with it, he shouldn't have gotten married. Honestly, I haven't eaten meat for 10 plus years, and it's pretty freaking obvious that freshly cooked plate of meat isn't rotting. It also won't affect his health to have it in his vicinity. These are all just BS excuses. As a vegan, that genuinely pisses me off because he just wasted meat just to be a petty a-hole. Yeah, I'm a vegetarian of almost 20 years. This dude's just really dumb and trying to make a point. Not a-hole. So your husband is a vegan and doesn't agree with eating meat, but surely by throwing your food away has now made it so the animal died for absolutely no reason, since you didn't get to eat it? Not only does he sound rude, controlling, condescending, and obnoxious, he's also furthering the problem by wasting the meat that would have at least died for a reason if you'd been able to eat it. I absolutely hate people that force their way of life on others. I'm a vegetarian, but would never stop my husband eating meat because that's his choice. Not a-hole, but kinda everyone sucks here. He definitely shouldn't have thrown out your dinner without asking if you're finished with it, and you understandably reacted poorly to it. But all of this is you both overreacting and being upset at something that should be a minor annoyance in a healthy relationship. I think you and your husband need to take this as a sign that there's something that's deeply wrong and needs to be discussed in private. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife that she is the mediocre one? My wife and I are both highly educated people. We both have doctorates and several master's degrees, as well as being successful in our professional lives. We also have a son, Caleb, 18 male, who is our pride and joy. Throughout Caleb's life, my wife and I have had some disagreements about parenting. I'm someone who values my son being a well-rounded person, which means I don't want Caleb to just have good grades and I don't care if he doesn't get a perfect score. And my wife is someone who values grades and discipline. It has taken us a long time to find a balance between what me and my wife want. Caleb is in his first semester of law school. One of the requirements to graduate is to certify that you know the English language. Since Caleb already has a certification, he decided to pick up German as a fourth language. I advised him to maybe wait to third semester to start learning German, just to give himself time to get used to how university works, and also because he has history of pressuring himself a lot when studying. Caleb was adamant on starting now, so I didn't push the issue forward. He just finished his second evaluation and is not doing as well as he expected. He's doing, in my opinion, fine. 9 out of 10 in his first test and 8 out of 10 in his second one, but he is very upset with himself. I tried to console him and told him that if he wanted to, we could look for some private tutoring. And I also reassured him that for someone who has never spoken an ounce of German, he is doing amazing. My wife, on the other hand, is furious with Caleb. She told him that his grades are unacceptable and to start putting in more effort on his education. Caleb got even more upset and started crying. She tried to ground him for 2 weeks with no outings, but I didn't let her do so. So now she's mad with me. She says that my weak parenting is allowing our son to be mediocre, and that she didn't raise Caleb to be average. I got mad because our son is nor average nor mediocre. So I ask her how many languages she speaks. My wife answers 1, so I tell her that she really doesn't have a say on this particular issue, since out of the 3 of us, she's most likely the mediocre one in that department. She got even more furious, so now I'm sleeping on the couch until further notice. I think you're really messed up here, but I got very mad with her for making our son cry, so I couldn't keep quiet. This is way beyond Reddit's pay grade. Not a-hole, but you need to get your son some help or he's going to burn out, and it will be you and your wife's fault. Someone needs to advocate for him, and ASAP. This reminds me of that one meme, "You ruined a perfect good ex." Look at it, it's got anxiety. Not a-hole. Your son is 18 years old and your wife is still trying to ground him? For bad grades? He doesn't sound mediocre. Keep sticking up for your son. How is 8 out of 10 mediocre anyway? Mediocre would be 5 out of 10. In my opinion, those grades are not bad at all. His first test consisted of 50 questions and he was wrong on 6, so he got 9. His second test was 60 questions and he was wrong on 12, so he got 8. He's never had contact with the German language, so those marks are fantastic. I'm gonna go with everyone sucks here. Mostly your wife is the a-hole, but it sounds to me like you have been enabling her or not putting your foot down for far too long. I was considered prodigious in elementary school. I just learned to read in kindergarten and had a head start. And because of my overachieving parents, I was totally burnt out by high school. Beyond a certain point, this pressure will only make Caleb's grades fall even more, together with his mental health. Please get him a therapist and have a big sit-down talk with your wife about whether Caleb's achievements are honestly higher on the priority list than his health and happiness. Better yet, considering her mindset likely originated from her own upbringing, she would probably also benefit from therapy. After all, I'm sure she loves her child, just not the way he needs her to. Last story. Am I the a-hole for volunteering my boyfriend and his truck to help my brother and his wife move? My 24 female boyfriend of over 2 years, 27 male, owns a newer, full-sized truck. I think he sinks way too much of his income into it and should probably just drive a regular car since he just drives it back and forth to work and to do errands. But he loves it, and it's his baby. My older brother, 31 male, and his wife, 31 female, recently bought a house and are moving out of their apartment. I was at my parents' house with the two of them when they announced it to us. When I asked them when they were moving and they told me, I told them, well, hey, my boyfriend has his truck, which I'm sure will come in handy. I'll have to ask him, but I'm sure he wouldn't mind you using it and helping you out. They told me that this would be great. When I told my boyfriend about it, though, to say that he started grumbling would be an understatement. He started going on about how he didn't want to give up his Saturday to help my brother and his wife move, and how he didn't want to put that wear and tear on his truck. He said that people moving stuff in and out of his truck bed was likely to put scratches on it, and how I shouldn't have volunteered him at his truck without talking to him first. I told them that I'd have to ask him first, and that it was ultimately up to him. He responded that there was no way for him to say no to it without looking like an a-hole to my family. So I pretty much made it so that he had no real choice. I think he's being kind of a baby, honestly, and should just be happy to help. My brother actually helped my boyfriend get his current job, so my boyfriend kind of owes him one. But maybe I was a little presumptuous? What do you think? You're the a-hole. You can't do that for him. You should have said nothing and asked him first. If he now feels obliged to do it, you need to help. It's very hard work. People can only offer themselves to do something like that. I bet it doesn't tell his siblings that you're going to make a dinner for them and their 30 guests, because they helped you with a plan too. This. You should have just kept quiet, asked him, and then said, hey, my partner has a vehicle we can use. You put him in such a tight spot. Opie, you're the a-hole. I also love how Opie is super critical about the truck in the first paragraph, but as soon as it comes in handy, she volunteers it on his behalf. I say you're the a-hole. You pretty much volunteered someone else's time without asking them. Doesn't matter if it's family or not, it's still their day and not yours to give away. And let's be honest, moving sucks. And people can't back out. You pretty much backed him into a corner to not being able to say no without looking like a total a-hole to your family. Also, you really shouldn't talk so badly about how he spends his money on a hobby that he clearly enjoys. If his bills are paid, then what he does in his spare time that gives him joy then is not stupid. And note that there was no mention of paying for his time or even just gas. Laughing my butt off. Do any of these people realize your boyfriend wouldn't even have a job if it weren't for your brother? They are family. Like, how ungrateful. I'm 28, but it seems like everyone in the comments is so butthurt because of his precious Saturday and, oh my god, scratches. First of all, the scratches won't freaking happen. There are so many ways around this. Also, if you live in Southern California and you own a truck, you're pretty much a small member Chad, especially if you don't even use it for its intended use. Like, I'd be embarrassed to be with someone who owns such a truck and doesn't actually use it for anything besides point A to B. Yes, moving sucks and helping people sucks, but you can help one day with your boyfriend. It could be fun and a bonding experience when you need to move. Who's to say you won't need help too? Like, did everyone forget what family is? I completely agree. Volunteering someone isn't the greatest, but the boyfriend would be in the exact same situation of looking like an a-hole had a family ask him. And if you're worried about your truck bed getting scratched, then you don't need a truck. Or just put a sheet of plywood down first. First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for putting a padlock on my son's bedroom door? My female 41, son 22, left for basic training last Friday. I cried for days and I miss him very much. He called once to let me know that he was safe, but I most likely will not get to talk to him for the next 12 weeks. I went to grocery store on Sunday, and when I came home, I heard my daughter, 16 female, screaming at my middle son, 20 male. When I went to see what was going on, I saw my middle son carrying a laundry basket full of my oldest son's clothes and his PS4. I also saw my husband, 42 male, all of my kids' bio father, putting the rest of his things in garbage bags. My daughter was screaming at both of them to put everything back and that it was Trev's things and not garbage. I asked both my husband and middle son what on earth was going on. My son said that his father told him he could take what he wants. At that point, I was livid with both of them and said that this was still Trev's home, and that until he told me otherwise, those were still his things and they will be kept in his room until he asks for them. My husband said that it didn't matter. Trev was a man now, and his home would be wherever the military sent him. I told my husband that he was being cruel to Trev and that this would always be his home. My daughter was hysterical at this point, and I told them both that they were despicable for treating his room and things like a shopping mall. The next day, I went out and bought a padlock for his bedroom door, and I have one key in the glove box of my car, and the other will be taken to my office and locked in my filing cabinet. When my husband saw the padlock, he flipped and told me that I was being overdramatic, and that this was his house, and he would just take a crowbar and pry it off. I told my husband and Jeff that if I saw either of them in that room again, or found that someone tampered with the lock, they would both be out of the house. My husband is now calling me a grieving war widow, and my middle son is saying that he is entitled to the bigger room now that Trev is gone. Meanwhile, all of this drama is making Trev leaving harder on my poor daughter, who is truly having a hard time with her big brother being gone. My husband is demanding I take the lock off the door and let him clean out the room. I refused to do this and told him that the only way the room is getting cleaned out would be if Trev no longer wants to live here. Am I the a-hole for putting a padlock on the door? Now for the top comments before the poster's little update. Not the a-hole. Will your other son have all of his things put into trash bin bags too? You know, since he's a man as well. If your middle son wants a big room, he is welcome to find one in his own apartment, with his new roommate, your husband. Best of luck to your son, and thank him for his service. Stay strong, mama. She should tell Jeff that since he is a man, it's time to throw his stuff out and then proceed to do it. I agree. I am even more shocked that two grown men did this in front of a crying teenage girl, and not once thought maybe we should stop. It's truly disturbing. Not at a-hole. I feel like a room switch could be negotiated with your sons in 12 weeks, but there's no reason at all for them to be stealing and throwing away Trev's things. They're still his things. Even if he ends up living elsewhere, one assumes he, wants his stuff. What if Trev doesn't make it through basic? Not only does he have to deal with all the emotional baggage of that, and then seeing what his family did to his room and his stuff. What the hell? I can sort of understand swapping rooms, but taking his stuff? I wouldn't do that to a roommate. Forget family. What the hell? Sorry I had to say it more times. My parents had some of my stuff 20 years after I lived there. It was boxed up in a crawl space, but it wasn't thrown out without my knowledge. Of course, Soapy is not a-hole. Wow, it is super weird to me that your other son and your husband are acting like Trev is dead, not just to wait 12 weeks. Did they hate Trev or something? It sure seems like they do, considering they're literally stealing his stuff, his space, everything. Apparently without ever having discussed it with him beforehand. And their disrespect for your empty nest syndrome is also weird. It feels like they're being super passive-aggressive towards him, and you and your daughter by extension. And with that "this is his house" crack, I'm wondering if there's some kind of beef between your husband and Trev that your husband has waited till now to vent. Or maybe he's just feeling threatened by the fact that Trev is a man now. I have no suggestions on how to get past this, because I can't see how you get past such disrespectful, cruel behavior. I'm sorry your husband and son are a-holes. Not a-hole. Now for the update. I went to bed shortly after I wrote this post and wanted to thank everyone for commenting, even the negative ones. To answer a few questions. 1. I spoke to Jeff this morning and asked if he had talked to Trev prior to him leaving about taking his PS4 and clothes, and he admitted he did not. I told him that he was stealing his brother's belongings and he had until noon today to return all of them. He agreed reluctantly to return everything. I told Jeff that if I saw him near his brother's room again, he would have to find someplace else to live because I would not have my children stealing from each other, especially when the other child is not here. 2. I spoke to my husband this morning as well and asked why he did what he did. He has admitted that he is having a difficult time with Trev being gone, and anytime he walked past his room, he was reminded that he isn't here anymore. He broke down and said that he missed him, and he was sorry. He too agreed that what they were doing was wrong, and said that he would put everything back the way it was until Trev came home and decided what to do with his things, / what he planned to take when he got to his permanent duty station. My husband is former Navy, and he said that he is not there to protect his son, and he is scared. He has seen combat and does not want his son to have to see the things that he saw. 3. The entire family agreed that Trev's room would be left the way it was while he was in boot camp / training school, especially since he was only able to take his clothes on his back and his phone when he left for basic. The agreement was that, when he was sent to his permanent duty station, he would make an inventory of the items he needed and we would store / donate what he did not want and ship the things that would not fit into his suitcase. 4. My daughter and her Bubba are very close. This transition has been very hard on her, which in turn has made things worse for me because not only am I concerned about my son, but I'm concerned about my poor daughter who is clearly struggling with him being gone. My husband and I discussed it, and we think it is wise to find her someone to talk to, or even a sibling support group for active duty military where she can go and talk about her feelings and fears. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for giving my husband a taste of his own medicine and buying him a generic gift for his birthday? Okay, so here's the deal. Every time any celebration comes up, whether it be my husband's birthday, Valentine's Day, Christmas, Easter, you get the gist, I always try to go above and beyond and get my husband a meaningful gift. It usually is something particular to do with his hobbies, items from a clothing brand he likes, useful gifts, games I know he wants. I always put loads of thought into the gifts and the packaging, etc. In return, for example, on my birthday, I got a card and a candle set. I have migraines, anything scented is no-go. And for Christmas, I didn't even get a card. Just a second-hand mini Hoover that I had to buy the plug and filter for myself, mind you. I do not expect the world from him, and I've told him if he struggles with gift ideas, to just ask me, or get me a card and some flowers, but he never listens. This has been going on for years, and every time his birthday or any other holiday comes up, I ensure to give him really personalized gifts. Yet, I always receive very random things that I just have no use for. We've had so many conversations about this, but he hasn't changed at all. So this year, I was upset because I subconsciously had so many awesome gift ideas planned out for him, but I thought back to the last time he gifted me that second-hand, half-put-together mini Hoover, and thought, hey, if he doesn't want to put in any effort, why should I? So I got him some new underwear and socks, which he actually needed, lol, and a card and flowers. When I gave him the gifts, he looked disappointed. He asked if he'll get his second half after dinner, and I said no. These are your gifts. He got very sulky and snappy with me afterwards, and I think it definitely soured the evening with that. He didn't call me an a-hole straight up, but did say I wasn't nice for not putting in much effort like I usually do. I told him this is about as much effort as he puts in for me, every single holiday. He got mad and left to go to the bedroom, where he still is now. So, am I the a-hole for showing the same amount of effort and giving my husband such generic gifts? Not the a-hole. I told him this is about as much effort as he puts in for me, every single holiday. He got mad and left to go to the bedroom. He's mad because you're right, and he left because he has no way of justifying his lack of consideration / effort. You've talked to him about this before, told him to ask you for gift ideas or just give you flowers, and he simply hasn't bothered. But with the complete lack of care he shows you, he feels entirely entitled to you going above and beyond for him. He's an a-hole, and he needs to change. 100%. He can rot until he changes. Not the a-hole, and all of these stories that get posted of extremely thoughtless, lazy, and / or disappointing husbands are way too common. It's because our society makes it okay for men to be inept as husbands and fathers. I don't watch much TV anymore, but it's treated as humorous for men to suck at domestic labor. I'm just aghast at how many posts here have men hide in their man caves, playing video games or watching porn while all the dishes / childcare / pet care / cooking / cleaning gets shoved off onto the women in their lives. The next story is titled, "Am I the a-hole if I tell my wife I don't want to have kids because I don't think she can look after them well?" I've 32 male been married to my wife, 29 female, for about 7 years. We have discussed having kids before, but we always had to wait a couple of years until our careers were more stable. We've been enjoying our child-free lives, but about a year back, we decided things were going pretty well for us and thought it's about time we had our baby. Working from home also frees up a lot of time for extracurricular activities. We haven't had any luck so far, but we're having the when it happens mentality, so we're not rushing anything. Sometime around October last year, wife suggested that we should get a puppy. We're both animal lovers, and we thought it was a great time since both of us would be at home and we could watch over and house train it. We got the puppy, and we both love him dearly. But ever since we got him, I've had to bathe, feed, and clean up after him. Don't get me wrong, she helps out as well, but I would say it's a 90-10% ratio. It gets extremely tiring after a while, and sometimes I just want to kick my feet up, have a nice beer, and watch TV without being interrupted with, "Hey, the puppy just peed. Can you come clean it up?" It carried on for a couple of months, and a couple of nights ago after a long Zoom session for work, I exploded and told her that she needs to do her share of looking after the puppy, and I'm tired of being the one who does all the work. She told me I was being calculative and trying to undermine her. I told her that it's clear that I've been doing all the dirty work, and all she wants to do is play with the puppy. This is where I might have gone too far. I told her if I can't trust her to look after our puppy, how can I trust her to look after a baby? If we had a baby, I won't be able to take cleaning up after him all the time, and she had to do her share as well. If she was going to act the same way, I would rather not have a kid. She screamed at me, burst out into tears, and left the house. She has been staying at her parents for a few days now, but things don't really seem to be improving. Her parents are telling me it was a horrible thing to say, as looking after a puppy is not the same as a baby, and that she would make a great mom, and that I should come over and apologize to make things right. Personally, I feel like it was harsh, yet I had to make a stand. I wouldn't know what to do if a baby comes along and she continues acting the same way. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for the way I acted? Now for the top comments. Coming from someone who does have kids, not the a-hole. Her response is typical of someone who lacks insight and objectivity. Yes, a dog and a child are not the same, but people who act this way often carry it into parenthood. If you ask me, you dodged a bullet here. Do not reproduce with this person if you want equality in a relationship. I'm afraid because we were able to come to a decision well with most other stuff like family, finances, and chores. But with the puppy, it just seems like she doesn't want to do the dirty work, and I'm not really sure why. Speaking to her doesn't really help either because she brushes it off. She screamed and burst into tears because you were 100% right. Maybe you were the a-hole, but that doesn't mean you were wrong. I think your last sentence sums up a lot of posts on the sub. Brutal honesty is usually seen as an a-hole move because it's very rarely warranted. However, in the cases we see here, things have usually escalated to a point where the harsh truth is needed. Not an a-hole. Yeah, it was a harsh thing to say, and in the future you need to talk about this sort of stuff rather than holding it in until you explode. But your logic isn't exactly off the mark. A puppy is a hell of a lot easier to care for than a human. So if she's doing close to nothing and relying completely on you, and you may not have the time to do the same for a child, then I just reiterate what I started with, that you should communicate these things earlier to avoid a blow-up situation. We have spoken about it before, but she often brushes it off. She feels that by playing with the puppy during the day, she has done her part, and somehow my explanation doesn't get through her. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not siding with my husband after what he told my parents? Me, female 25, and my husband Leo, male 27, have been married for 2 years. He and his family always struggled financially. He lost his mom at a young age, is now in no contact with his father because of his stepmother's treatment. He didn't have much when I met him. He's a very emotional and prideful person, sometimes tends to be irrational. He injured his leg 6 months ago in a truck accident. He's using crutches, unable to walk without them, and can't work. He doesn't have a degree, but used to work in construction. He has an ongoing pain. And medication isn't helping, and I'm worried about it. I have a job that's barely enough. My parents are supportive. They'd send groceries, blankets, come over and help out with some stuff. Leo's always shown them appreciation, and they consider him their son. A few days ago, he's been talking about whether my parents can help him pay for his surgery so he could work again. I told him my parents don't have $17,000 to help with the surgery, and our talk ended. Yesterday, we were visiting my parents. We were sitting talking when Leo started complaining about his leg and being unable to work, and went on about the cost of surgery to my parents, and they nodded, feeling sorry for us. Leo asked them if they could help by giving us $17,000 for the surgery. My dad politely told him they don't have that kind of money. Then Leo, out of nowhere, mentioned my sister's college fund and asked if they could use some of it to help out. I was shocked. My dad started berating him for bringing it up and told him that this is their daughter's future that they don't take lightly. Said he didn't appreciate Leo's inconsiderate behavior to be asking this, but Leo kept talking about paying them back. But how can you pay back $17,000? He looked at me almost tearing up. Then my dad asked us to leave because he thought I agreed with Leo, but I was dumbfounded. I had no idea I'd do this. We got home. Leo was upset I let my parents berate him. Said he was stunned by my reaction and said that he's my husband, and I'm the one who knows how much he's suffering and should understand his situation. We had an argument. I lashed out at him. I told him he had no right to even mention my sister's future and put me and my parents in this awful situation. I told him to stop it after he said he'd pay them back, but we both know he won't be able to. After arguing, I left the room to calm down. I was surprised to see him crying in the room. I felt terrible, mostly helpless because I understand he's looking for help. But my parents are upset with me now and I can't even call them. My sister is 16. I wish I could say no a-holes here because the desperation of your husband hits me hard. I feel a little bummed that there's going to be a flood of comments berating him for the horrible behavior, but I kinda get it. Constant pain makes you go crazy. Pride is even harder to swallow when you feel useless all the time. The anxiety of astronomical medical bills in the United States is a nightmare. Of course, even so, his behavior was unacceptable and crossed into a-hole territory. Therefore, not an a-hole. Best of luck, Opie. Please reach out to your parents. Please communicate with your husband. I'm really hoping you guys get on the same page. I think the core verdict here is FPHITA. For-profit healthcare is the a-hole. Not an a-hole. It sure takes a certain amount of something to ask your in-laws to give you your sister-in-law's college fund after your wife told you they could not afford to do so. I understand he is in pain, but that does not excuse his behavior, and the fact he's made it so your parents are also upset with you is pretty horrible. I don't know, as someone who suffers from chronic pains as a result of a childhood accident, so slightly different situation from Obi's husband, there are times when I'm just so done with everything that I beg anyone for help. I can't help but empathize with Opie's husband because I remember how absolutely painful it was knowing treatment existed, but it was too expensive for me to afford. My injury became not just physical, but also mental. I feel like the biggest a-hole here is life and whatever insurance system, I'm guessing US but not sure, exists that makes necessary treatments $17,000. Added to clarify that I agree with not an a-hole. I'm just having a hard time calling the husband an a-hole.